If you look at CRMs, for example, they're very set up in the seller's language, but buying, like, to the point you've just made then, the buying process looks very different. And
Yeah.
perhaps if you flipped it on its head, the way you would look at it would be a much more honest picture as a seller.
Yeah. We are working with them, we're collaborating. I mean, that's the word I would always use, rather than trying to do sales to somebody. That's the stereotypical when you ask somebody about sales, it's like, oh, you're going to come along and maybe buy something I don't really want. You're going to twist me. You're going to judo me into that headlock.
That's manipulation. And I think that's the big thing about like ethical sales. Are you it's the same skills. So you can either manipulate people and kind of that's not ethical, or you can influence people and you can use the same skills to influence them if that is genuinely the best thing for them. The difference between influence and manipulate is intent.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes.
And welcome to this episode of the Sales Today podcast, where I'm delighted to be joined by Zach and Jack. Zach Thompson and Jack Frimston. Best friends, co-directors of WHAM, which is a sales agency, and also a sales consultancy. Guys, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure is ours.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I had to speak to you. I had to speak to you at some stage anyway, because I see the stuff that you put out on social media, and it's always very entertaining, and actually often quite serious, and sometimes serious and entertaining at the same time, which is a pretty good work. And there's one particular thing that you put recently that caught my eye because it was to do with ethical selling. And the last part of your post was, every single day, me and Zach Thompson try our best to make sales ethical, change the industry, and make selling feel good. And I thought, oh, podcast episode in that. So, Jack, as you wrote it, so you can start. Just explain that in a little bit more detail for us.
Sales is one of let me reverse question it. But when you think of sales and salespeople, you work in sales, so I'm sure that you have lots of experience. But what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Oh, right. You're talking the Daniel Pink page where he did this survey, didn't he? And everyone was putting sleazy and kind of pushy and manipulative and kind of coercive and tricky dicky, sneaky stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So that's what you would think of as the majority of salespeople. That actually isn't the majority of salespeople. Well, it might be, but what I think we're pushing forward with is when you buy something and you go through that sales process and somebody helps you solve a genuine problem, it feels good. You look back and you go, oh, that was a nice process. That felt good. Somebody helped me get from A to B and they solved a genuine problem that I had. So why can't all sales encounters be like that? Why can't all cold outreach make you feel good, or it doesn't have to feel pushy or ramming it down your throat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a case of how do you make sales good again, and how do you make it kind of just feel like it's not pushy, shovey. There's a lot of Americans that are trying to bend your arm, and I always think that they're trying to sell some course or there's some ulterior motive. I think try and help people, because that's what sales is. Sales is to serve. So if you think about the other person's needs and you actually think about how you can help them, I think that's why it's important to us.
Okay. Zach, would you add anything into that? Was there any kind of, you've got a pretty comprehensive answer there.
It's pretty. I don't always like the guy, but he's summarized it quite well. So I won't add any color to that picture.
Nah. You used the word ethical. I mean, obviously that is the one that really caught my attention. Let's have a bit of a riff on ethics in sales, and kind of are there ethics in sales? Could we do better? What are your thoughts, Zach? Lead me on that one. Ethics
I
in
think
particular.
I think it's a very top-down problem. So depending on what you're being targeted on will often inform your ethics. So everything is contextual in sales, with probably things around what your commission's based on, what you're targeted on. So I've worked in businesses that are very, let's get this over the line to keep the shareholders happy. And they've completely lost the vision of what the business was set up to do in the first place, which was probably in its inception to solve a sticky problem for a person. When shareholders got involved, that then became, let's keep the shareholders happy and just get deals over the line by any means necessary. In our world, which is in one of our businesses, we have a meeting where we're booking appointments. If you have a team that's targeted doing the same thing on just get me in front of people, then they will do that. They will do what they're told. They'll get you in front of people, whether it's ethical or not. They'll get meetings in the diary. People who don't show up, don't attend, are there for the wrong reasons, are never going to buy. So often, I think it's a top-down issue, and even the skill of selling is lost in that. Because if you were looking at sales as I'm just there to get someone to think deeply about the problem I solve, and you forgot everything else, and at the end of that call, I'm going to get to a yes or a no outcome, well, who cares about the other stuff? So it's quite a convoluted issue, because oftentimes it's influenced by a lot of different means that are not in the salesperson's hands.
And sometimes would it be fair, and Jack, you might have an opinion on this, that particularly where the world you're working in, you might have some reasonably inexperienced people. They're into a first job, and that's what they're told is the way to go about doing stuff. They almost don't know that isn't necessarily something that people want or is a good thing to do. So it's the leaders who've got to take a lot of responsibility for this.
What do we say? Like a fish rots from the head down. Like trust is a crazy thing, and if you are, I always say, but the majority of salespeople, like entry roles, SDRs, appointment setters, whatever they are typically 20 to 30. They don't have buckets full of experience. They didn't hope to get into sales. They end up there and they kind of follow what's told of them. And Zach said it so beautifully, but whatever the metrics are, people will do that. So like I know in the space lead generation, which you'd put us in the world of, that is such a broad spectrum. What is a lead? So that's the first question. Like, what do you qualify as a lead? And one of the kind of the flags that I fly high is not all meetings are created equally. So we know that referrals or an inbound lead or a cold outreach from a cold call that's qualified or a cold outreach from an email, they're all very, very different, but you'd say, oh, they're leads. So what are people being marked on, and what can you hold people accountable for? Remember that the end goal in sales is not to generate leads, it is to sell. But how do you make that ethical in the process of not kind of tying someone's arms behind their back?
Yeah, no, I kind of smiled at what is a lead, because I'm sure some people define it as a like on LinkedIn. Oh, it's a lead. Not really. They don't really want to carry on talking, do they, to solve a problem? And then what you say there, Zach, is to think deeply, to help somebody get their head around something so they're in a better place as a result of what we've done. Yeah, whether it's the first conversation, second, third, whatever. I certainly think that's where sales is heading. We're sense makers. Yeah, that's a good, ethical, decent thing to be doing. And so, as Jack, you lead on this one, do you think we're in a worse place than we were before, or better? I mean, we understand this better, I think, but are we doing this better or worse? What's your sense on that?
Me?
Yeah.
I would say I think people are more aware of sales now, and we have to give them more credit. So people will use the internet to check reviews, and people will use other people's testimonials, and I think people are always looking for that social proof as well. There's a lot more choice. Obviously, choice is a great thing, but in today's world where you can log on to an app and you can see 50 different restaurants in your area and 50 different single women in your area. Like there's too much choice, and I think that can affect the. I don't have any of those apps, but
allegedly.
I think that,
Do you want to use the word allegedly?
allegedly. But we're in a crazy world where there is so much choice, and it goes back to that point of, if you can make the buying process easy and simple for people, and they feel heard and they feel like it's the right solution, well, they don't need to shop around. So a lot of people go to the competitors because it's a fear of like missing out. Whereas I think like if you can do things in the right way, if ethical salespeople shouldn't be slagging off competitors, although I know it's happened, but we say, go and speak to everybody. Do you want me to intro you? Like, do you want me to intro you to our competitor? The ones that I know, like, go and have a conversation with them. And if you think they're better, then I've obviously, like, I've failed somewhere along the way. I haven't opened it up, but like, that's ethical selling. And I think from that, the psychology behind it is kind of putting your money where your mouth is as well, and saying like, I'm willing to kind of stand in line with everybody else and let you be the judge, and you're the one in control. Control is a funny word in sales, and we could unpack that, but it's the element of control.
Let's unpack it. Yeah, I mean, I love the thing on transparency, you know, and the tactic. I mean, it's a tactic, but some people might say it's not an ethical tactic. I have no problem with this, which is saying, look, if you're looking for this, and it's the most important thing, we're probably not the right company to speak to. Go across and speak to these other guys. But if you're looking for this, and this, absolutely, we're right, and we should continue the conversation. Leader of the floor, Todd Capone talks about that stuff. Yeah, pretty ethical guy there. So, control, though, yeah. Control in the world of sales. I'm interested. Should we throw that one to Zach? Yeah, you've introduced it. He's now got to
unpack it.
Yeah. Well, Zach, tell us about control, world of sales, and what Jack's kind of alluding to there.
But are we talking control of the sales process of when we're tapping in and when we're tapping out? How we I take that in many different places.
Let's talk about control of the sales process. So taking a bigger picture kind of look at that. I mean, I have an opinion on this. I'll show you guys in a minute, but I'd love to hear what you're thinking about
that. Okay, so our very, very quick psychology lesson. Our brains have lots of little shortcuts in them that help us understand the massive information that we're falling underneath, and they are called biases. So the brain creates these little shortcuts. And because we still have our ancestral brain in there, a lot of those biases are to protect us from risk, keep us alive, sometimes keep us in a state of homeostasis. So pull that physiological handbrake and say, actually, don't do anything, do not change. We're not built to change. We're built to just adapt to problems rather than completely change them. So because of that, it's very important that you give the monkey mind lots of room and don't corner it. So human beings tend to respond well to having lots of room to say no. That's the first thing that I would tick off. And again, you will feel like a more ethical seller if you're doing that. Also, the human brain works well with little mini contracts. So permission is one of them. So cold call openers around, is there permission here for me to have 30 seconds, tell you I've called, or would you rather tell me to sling my hook because your cat got run over on the way to work? I'm easy. I'm not here to press you into anything. But also regular increments throughout the sales process, having the option for this can be a crossroads moment here if we continue the process or we part ways. And I'm not here to drag along a hostage. I can only get you to do something at gunpoint once. If I try and get it to you to do it a second time, you won't trust me. So our whole sales process has these little bits where people can drop out of the sales process, and we're quite happy to do so. As a result, our CRM is very much built on yes and no, a maybe, a might do, or an opportunity without a diarized next step doesn't exist. We just don't have that in there. So there's probably a few ideas to throw out there that we can open up.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because you're talking about sales process, which I think we kind of have to use that language because that's the bit that we are focusing on. But I can hear from what you're saying is that you're saying, well, the sales process, it's very much in line with the buying process and what that customer is going through, how they're thinking, and is it right for them? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that all sales processes are like that. I'm not even sure that the buying process is that simple to kind of calibrate. I think it's a big, messy, sort of squiggly thing that we're helping people along as and when. And so that to me sounds like what you've done there. You are very much considering the customer and how they're thinking, what they're doing, what they're trying to achieve. And the control element is kind of, well, yeah, we've got to do something, but we're kind of giving that to them to make the informed decision. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly that. Even if you look at CRMs, for example, they're very set up in the seller's language, but buying, like, to the point you just made then, the buying process looks very different. And perhaps if you flipped it on its head, the way you would look at it would be a much more honest picture as a seller.
Yeah. We are working with them, we're collaborating. I mean, that's the word I've been always using. Yeah, and moving along rather than trying to do sales to somebody. I think that's what you were saying, Jack, is that's the stereotypical when you ask somebody about sales, it's like, oh, you're going to come along and maybe buy something I don't really want. You're going to twist me. You're going to judo me into that headlock.
That's manipulation.
Yeah.
That's manipulation. And I think that's the big thing about like ethical sales. Are you it's the same skills. Like if you read Robert Greene's book, and it's like people use those skills in jail to manipulate other people. So you can either manipulate people and kind of that's not ethical, or you can influence people and you can use the same skills to influence them if that is genuinely the best thing for them. The difference between influence and manipulate is intent. So it's like, where are your morals? Do you go home at night and you feel dirty about the work that you've done? Do you feel like, actually, the way I controlled that conversation, that was a bit shady? Do you kind of struggle to sleep at night because of that? I'm sure people don't, because they're working towards a commission check, but that's probably the conversation to have with yourself. I'm sure people that are listening to this are probably more so on the ethical side. But if you are listening to this and you think, oh, I manipulate a lot of people, don't.
I hope we're preaching to the converted. Actually, even if we're not, that's pretty good. Maybe somebody will start thinking, yeah, what am I doing here? But yeah, I like what you're saying about influence, so that we can use an influence skill with the right intent. So we could almost make somebody do something, which is have a difficult discussion for them, but actually they're going to come out of it better because they've had to face up to something that is a problem they don't really want to like address, but it's doing them damage if they're not. So we're actually helping them there. Challenger style thing, yeah.
One of the big things that we do during our discovery process is put everything else on the table that they could be doing instead of using us, and it's something that we kind of promote for other people to do as well. So what is the alternative to using a sales agency? Well, it's hiring, it's using another sales agency, it's doing it themselves. Many different things you could do. How come you haven't? And letting them take them off the table. Not trying to convince that yours should be on the table, letting them take everything else off the table, and they've got to convince you. So it's that shift in mindset as well, which I think is so powerful when it comes to selling. It's that kind of mindset of abundance of, I'm not here fighting for scraps. You're not the king, and I'm chasing you around the playground trying to get some chips.
I'm not sure how many metaphors were mixed in chasing the king around the playground trying to get some chips, but I knew exactly what you're on about anyway, so it's absolutely fine. But no, that's interesting then, that you are deliberately saying, here are your choices. Not, I really hope they don't go away, and I hope they haven't got access to the internet or something like that. It's like, look, I'll save you time and effort. This is the stuff you could do. Oh, brilliant. Actually, that last one you said, oh, that's what we don't do. Okay, well, if that's right for you, great. I'm interested, though, in doing that. Do you find you are more successful in selling the thing that ultimately, yeah, you are in business to sell the agency or the consultancy work? Does it make you more successful at this?
Well, how are we defining success?
Well, you're selling off the back of it. Well, you're still in business, so I'm guessing that it's kind of answering it itself. But by doing that, you find that people are saying, oh, no, awesome, very good. No, I want to continue the discussion with you because I think those options that you can provide me with are better.
There's a few different answers to this question, right? So I think one of the things to be aware of, you've got an invisible PR agent that's following you around when you're in business. And it's especially ruthless when you first start off in business. If you had one client that didn't work out, you're having nightmares thinking, what if that person goes out and tells everyone about it? But if you're dealing with everyone in the way that we're talking about, so if I'm having a discovery call with someone and I say, based on this, we're not going to be the best fit for you. And actually, you can do some of this stuff for free. That's a really good outcome. I've not taken your money off you. You've gone away and solved a problem for free. And often those are people that come back to us and also refer us on as well. Me and Jack have had many, many discovery calls with people who say, oh, I was recommended by someone we've never even worked with, just someone that we had a conversation with. And we actually, through that therapized conversation, led them to a conclusion that we weren't going to be the best solution. The other thing around the more kind of traditional success, do we make money? Has the business run better as a result of this? I think what tends to happen is when you start working with someone in our line of work, the relationship is very much sat on a bedrock of expectation. So if I've promised the world and their expectation is perfect and I come in at great, well, I'm not perfect. So actually it's a little bit disappointing still. So there's actually quite a long fall from there. But if I've come in at, look, we're going to have to work together a little bit on this. I think realistically, we should expect to see some good results from week 3, but the first 2 weeks might be us finding our feet and a bit of teething issues. People love that because they feel like they're part of the process, like we've built it together, and like we're it's like that IKEA thing. You like IKEA because you've built the furniture yourself. They've been involved in the building process, and you're proud of it.
That effect has been studied, hasn't it? I think the psychologists will look at that. Yeah. Interesting. No, interesting definitions around success. Then, like, yeah, success. Yeah, I got some money in the bank. Yeah, and yeah, I can employ people. I can put the lights on. But actually, I'm helping people do stuff better, and that's a decent thing. Not everyone has the same definitions of success like that, do they? And I think that's going back to what Jack, you were saying, which is how the industry is set up in many cases, in that success is we're smashing people through our pipeline to get them to this point where they must listen to our demo, and we'll use every single technique and trick to make it sound great for them. And then we're successful. We're great. We've 10x stuff. Wow, well done us. And this sounds like you don't really like that approach.
There's a bit of a philosophy piece in here, and me and Jack were talking about it the other day, and it's so hard because that when you try to, the second you try and have a conversation about being humble, you automatically lose the conversation, and you get a phone call and it's like, congratulations, you've just won the award for being most humble. So yeah, I'm already at a disadvantage, but there are so many studies, and I think we listen to a lot of the same sort of podcasts of rich people. That me and Zach are by no means wealthy in the grand scheme of things. We don't have millions in the bank. We don't drive Bugattis, things like that. But from studying it and reading like Robin Sharma's book about wealth and things like that, I think we understand that we know money doesn't lead to happiness. Money leads to freedom that can lead to other things. And I'd rather like say it now that we're not materialistic in that piece, and it's more about like what do you define as success? Well, we get to do things that we love every day. We get to inspire other people. We get to laugh with each other. I get to work with my best friends. Like that's for me is success. No like 20 grand Rolex and green Bugatti and trips to the Maldives. Do you know what I mean? If you're unhappy, wherever you go, there you are. You're still going to be there. So it doesn't matter if you go traveling around Thailand if you're really sad in your head. I hope that didn't make me sound like a wanker.
No, not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. And again, you know, why we're doing this, we want people to be listening and maybe thinking, you know, as a result of what they're hearing us say. And you know, if people are just recalibrating success a little bit based on what you were saying there. I know you're saying stuff for a bit of a laugh, but you know, it's all those pound notes, anybody. Yeah. That's how little money I have. Last time I did it was notes. No, it's all that money piled up. Whereas really, are you actually enjoying life and the stuff that you're doing and kind of the interactions you're having and living stuff? I think that's interesting. So, okay, so if you had a magic wand. Now you either love or hate that question. It creates a lot of debate. I like it because I like Harry Potter. But anyway, but if you had a magic wand and we could change things at a stroke and sort of speed up some of the changes or make some things happen pretty different, what things would you be bringing into play? Let's go with Zach first on that because he tilted his head, so he.
Yeah, I'm trying to give you the most interesting angles to these questions. So not the obvious sort of trite stuff, but we had a guest on our podcast, and I thought this was an interesting point. He's a guy who basically teaches people how to speak. That's been his whole career, and he's done a TED Talk with millions of people that have watched his TED Talk. It's a guy called Julian Treasure. And what he was telling us, it's such an obvious point, is you go to school and you're taught to read, you're taught to write, you're taught to do some maths badly if you're in my shoes, but you're never taught how to speak. So you go to your peer group to learn how to have conversations, or if you've got an interest in maybe showing off like me and Jack did, you might do drama and music, but only if you've got an interest already in that. So you go to your peer group to learn social skills, but the peer group now takes place on one of these things, right? So actually, there's a potential gap coming up between social skills where actually they've not been taught, and there's been no seeking to learn them either. And sometimes we do experience it in interviews. People have got the best intentions, but they just don't have any kind of raw social skills or ability to be in a room with a stranger and not necessarily have to get on with someone, but just can you have a conversation with someone that's structured and doesn't feel strange? So to take your magic wand question, it would be, I've got young children. I'd love it if part of the curriculum was based around speaking and communication and socializing and language, and they were taught things there that meant if I then put them in an interview at 18 or put them in a room full of strangers, they'd be okay and it wouldn't be alienating, and they'd be able to hold their own and be interested in people and make them feel heard.
Awesome. Yeah, I just think about school. Didn't we have to sit on our hands and not talk?
You did.
Yeah, I probably did. There you go. Wonder why I picked the career I did. So, okay, so you've magic communication social skills. Yeah. Zach, you can pick another. Sorry, Jack, you can pick another one. Yeah.
But I think it ties into what Zach was saying. So about the speaking, that's one. The other one is listening. So everybody thinks about being Zen and meditation to be more present. Okay, I want to be more present. I want to be in the moment. The amount of people that, and I've been there, and I still am at times, because life is busy and you're running a business and you've got 1,000,001 different things. I've got a partner at home. I've got a baby. I've got all this junk up in my head, and somebody's coming to me to talk about a problem, and I'm thinking about, well, did I take the bins out this morning, and what am I doing on the weekend, and what time do I need to leave to get there? And it's hard to actually listen. And I think we say, like, meditate so that you feel better and you feel like you're more in the present moment. But do you know how to listen? Listening is a skill. How do you actively listen? How do you effectively listen? How do you listen to what somebody's saying, but not thinking about the next question, and not thinking about, oh, I've done that as well, and I relate in that situation. How do you be fully present in that moment and go, okay? And if empathy is required, allowing that empathy to kind of seep out like a fog. And not only just listening, but like walking into a room and saying, oh, something's not right here. Like, so many people are judged on their IQ. How smart are you? But what about EQ, the emotional intelligence? So it's moving towards that. And I think that there needs to be a bigger focus on those emotional skills of, oh, I've been having conversations with friends before, and I've said, are you okay? Do you feel okay? Because it feels like off, and other people have missed it. And it's like, oh, I can spot something in that moment where the way they're acting, the way they're talking, the body language just screams, I'm not okay. And then they'll open up and say, oh yeah, you said we could do this, but actually I thought we were going to do this weekend. And they open up about that. So I think it's just being able to pick up on that, the body language, social skills, all of that, being able to communicate and being able to listen are skills that are hugely missed.
Awesome. Should we be training people in EQ?
I think we should definitely be having conversations around it.
Okay. Yeah.
Everything starts with
people are aware of it, and that it is a thing, and it can make a huge difference. And I say training because I have run training programs on it, and I know that some big companies, and even the US Air Force, train people in EQ. because they know it has such an impact on results, more than likely.
Mm.
So it's quite a biggie.
I think it's one of those that if you did a survey of 100 people and you asked them about it, do people know? What's their understanding of it? So if there's no understanding, training's great, but like just getting the conversation moving. Like 2024 is a great example. We talk about mental health. Mental health isn't a taboo word, but 40 years ago, you just crack on. It was stoic. It was upper lip. I'm gonna just get on with life. But it's like it's different now. So let's see where the next 40 years take us in terms of communication, because it can't keep going downhill with it's just text but maybe voice notes will be the breaking of that.
No, I think you're right. I love those magic ones. Wishes, communication, social skills, listening, EQ. It's like you've read the chapter in the book on that, but you can't have because it's not out yet. Spooky, eh? No, guys, absolutely awesome. I've got to be aware of time that you're giving up. It's two of you. Take two out of the business. come and talk about this. So I've absolutely loved what you got to say and some of the things you got to share and those refreshing perspectives, which in some ways is a bit sad that they are refreshing. I think we'd all be happier if they weren't, if they were just normal and that's the way it was. But at the moment they're refreshing and we do need to talk about this stuff. Where can people get in touch with you to talk about WHAM, which is We Have a Meeting, and the consultancy work that you use? What's the best place to get in touch?
LinkedIn, Zach Thompson, Jack Frimston, or you can go on the websites wehaveameeting.com or asalesconsultancy.com.
Brilliant. I'll pop those into the show notes so that people can find those straight away. Do we need to warn them what might happen if they connect to your LinkedIn?
Nothing will happen that you don't want to happen.
No,
Very ethical
I suspect they'll learn a lot. They'll learn a lot and they'll have a bit of fun because certainly the content you guys put out, it is good fun. I enjoy reading it, and I've really enjoyed talking to you today and kind of going a bit deeper on some of the things that you've started to highlight and getting people thinking about through your talking. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the Collaborative Selling Scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.